have you ever reacted emotionally and not know why? Maybe your subconscious is the one controlling everything. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit more with Teresa Saunders, my fellow colleague, and I'm Meredith McCarthy, your host. And this is today's talk time, so I hope you enjoy it.
Hi Meredith. Hi everybody.
Hello. So let's get rocketing into this juicy topic, shall we?
For sure.
So when we're kind of looking at the subconscious mind, what's the thing that comes up for you the most if you think of how to explain it to someone? Because a lot of people don't understand it, do they?
No, and the subconscious mind is what we've already, a lot of it's what we've already learnt and in the past, and part of our primal instincts. So it would actually be our survival mechanism and our fuel for life. So digesting and health and that type of thing. But also it's stuff that we have learnt, which we then store and we're able to do automatic on an automatic mode. That's the way I would sort of see it. So it's like when you get up in the morning and you've got your routine and you clean your teeth. When you're a child, you learn how to clean your teeth. But as an adult, we don't need to think about how do I clean my teeth? Do I brush up and down and side to side, etc.? We just automatically do that because it's learned. So the subconscious mind's taking over while our conscious mind can be focusing on something else.
There are going to be some learned, primed subconscious reactions to the world. And there are also going to be basic instinct reactions to the world that don't have to be learnt necessarily. They just, you know that that's not good and you're going to get squashed if you don't get out of the way. Like your brain will process the level of risk depending on what's going on based upon other bits of information maybe that you've learned, but also your primary goal for the subconscious is to protect you. So I don't know if you've ever watched one of those YouTube videos where they've got the cat and they put a large cucumber behind the cat, and when the cat sees the cucumber, it jumps up thinking it's a threat.
No, I haven't. No, I don't watch. I'm one of those people that don't watch cat videos, but I know many people get a lot of joy and happiness from that.
Well, it's a great example of prime instinct. The cat has never met a snake or sort of something that looks like that in the past on its, like maybe this lifetime, but on a DNA level, it's learned that things that are long and that are behind you or whatever may be a threat and you need to jump out of the way. So we have that as human beings too. We have these instinctive feelings about things that are in our DNA that help us to survive. But also we have lived experiences that may prime us into a fear. So people might have had a fear of water ever since they can begin, like even as a baby, but nothing terrible's happened to them. But instinctively, they haven't felt safe in water for whatever reason. Maybe, again, it was way beyond a logical level. It just might have been a shock to the system that it wasn't expecting to be immersed in water all of a sudden, or whatever that is. So we often deal with people with huge fears and phobias, don't we?
We do, yeah. So really sort of debilitating fears and phobias, I would say at times.
Yeah, and that's where the emotions are running the show, right?
Yeah, and all the body wants to do is protect them, but it's gone into overdrive, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yep. So to overcome that, we've got to deal with the subconscious reaction. We've got to rewire the way that the subconscious is seeing the threat. When we think about a part of our brain called the amygdala, it's a very interesting and important part of the brain that helps us to process potential threat. So it's looking out for potential matches to things that have maybe not been great as experiences in the past. So when it sees something that looks like it might be a spider, it will start to react as if it was a spider. And it might have just been a loose bit of cotton just blowing in the wind. It wasn't a spider at all. But the brain starts to see it was very similar to a spider and will start to get anxious as if it was a spider. So many times we can be fooled by the information coming at us. And so we need to dial down that very, very severe or strong reaction, right?
For sure. I mean, I've had clients that come in and their anxiety has got that heightened that the thought about it, so they're thinking about being anxious, and that's driving that anxiety even higher and higher. So yeah, we really do need to dial that down, because you can't live in survival mode all the time. You just get very unwell.
Absolutely. So when we're thinking about the iceberg model, that is something that I used to teach my students. It's a Freudian model of the subconscious mind. And if we imagine an iceberg and the tip of it, this is the conscious mind, what we're aware of. But the subconscious is everything below, including the ocean, and everything in the ocean. So it's a very vast space, our subconscious. People call it the unconscious mind, but I tend to not use that term, because people then think we're unconscious, like we're out cold and so on. But it's anything that your conscious mind is not aware of. That's the subconscious. Okay, that's what's happening beyond your conscious awareness. Is everything that's beyond that is your subconscious. Okay, and that is often where we're learning to drive a car from A to B, but it didn't happen easily or automatically. It happened through training the brain, training the body, training the mind, so we can drive without having to think too much about it consciously. We go into autopilot.
Or like a spider, you could have been somewhere and you've seen a spider and it has protected you from jumping out that way. But, then the next time we see a spider, then we do the same thing, but it might be a completely different circumstance, and we don't need to react in that way. It could be behind glass at the zoo or something like that. So you've got no need to activate that survival mode.
Lots of people have very, very interesting sensory perceptions that are turning up the alarm system beyond how they need to be for survival. So some children may even be so phobic of food that they can't even see it between glass. That it might make them feel like they're going to vomit, or get really panicky and stressed out. So to their brain, the food is a threat, even though it's actually probably good for them. For whatever reason, their sensory system has turned up the threat level to a ridiculous level. So it's overreacting to that food. We can help to desensitize people who have these overreactions to all sorts of things. And it could be a sound, it could be something you've seen, it could be a smell, it could be many, many things that could trigger a very strong sensory subconscious reaction, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because our brains are amazing things, and they're trying to do that wonderful job of protecting us and do go into overdrive.
Absolutely. So when we're looking at the trauma and the role of trauma and conditioning, some emotional patterns feel very automatic, and that is because we're not really consciously thinking about it. There are many programs that are created spontaneously based upon a moment in time that stick around because a strong emotion wins. So your brain is set up to remember strong emotion, and especially if it's in the threat zone. So that means that often when people come in around a phobia, it's got worse over the years. It's not the same. It's actually got worse and worse and worse, because every time they've gone into a situation that even remotely reminds them of the phobia, they've compounded it. What's your take on that, in the way of how a phobia can grow sometimes?
Oh, it can grow dramatically, especially if it's something that you're subjected to daily or weekly, and you have had a really strong adverse reaction to that event or situation. So your body remembers that strong thing and doesn't dial it back down again. So it just builds and builds and builds. It's a bit bigger and bigger for people. So there's ways that we can actually, through hypnotherapy, change that. As you're sure, I mean, one of the things, you can do is you can get people to start imagining, but even that could be too big for people to actually start off with.
Yeah. When we're looking at imagining as if you've never had it, that can be quite useful for someone to seed. It may not be that they achieve that fully, to imagine that they've never had that fear or phobia. But when we start to ask a question and we start to elicit the right kind of imagination, we want to move them towards successful thinking rather than distressful thinking, right? Because they've done enough distressful thinking for a lifetime. They've been in their negative hypnotic mind, reinforcing the negative of how terrible it's going to be, how awful it's going to feel, and all of those things. So our duty as a therapist is to allow them to imagine how wonderful it's going to be, how incredibly empowering that could be, to be able to live beyond that old experience. And so when we start to get a person to plant that seed, what if you could imagine yourself hopping on that plane and actually having a good time? What if you could imagine playfully naming the spiders? What if you could you can play around with eliciting a much better response by asking really interesting questions with the client, right?
Yep, and some people might need to take baby steps. They might need to just look at a plane first of all, and a flight on a phone. Not imagine themselves getting on it. See that somebody else is safe to board that plane first, or whatever. So every client's going to be different, and how you work with them. But asking those questions and flipping that situation from negative to positivity is, the art of hypnotherapy, I guess, and helping your client empower themselves again.
For sure. When I think about how many people, one common one is driving phobias. There are a lot of people who suffer from that, right? And it's often things like the motorway, where they feel that they can't get off, or they're stuck in some way, or maybe if they suddenly need to go to the toilet or something, they wouldn't be able to. And that feeling of anxiety starts to build to the point where they end up not going on the motorway. And depending on where you live, that can be quite isolating. It can stop you from going away on a holiday in your car and enjoying that freedom. So even the kids that they might need to pick up and take on a school trip or something like that, if they can't go on the motorway, that can become really problematic. You go.
I've actually had a client like that, and they've got better, but they still will not use the major roads because of the amount of traffic, and they will do major detours to actually avoid going on the motorway. They're fortunate they're in an area that they can do that. I mean, but to begin with, they would avoid driving. If there's a few cars on the road, they'd pull over and stop until cars were gone and the road was quieter again. So it really can affect your life, the way that you think about these things, and hold on to the reactions, the emotions that the subconscious is actually using to try and protect you.
And their logical levels, often they go, I know it's silly, but I just can't help it. And this is where that phobia, that level of phobia, not just a fear, but it's a phobia, is what's going on in that moment. They really do have a genuine phobia around those triggered points. So it's beyond, really. I want, for the audience out there, I want you to know, if you are one of those people, you don't have to continue suffering. If you're looking for a way through this, hypnotherapy is definitely a really awesome approach to overcoming phobias around driving. You go, Teresa.
I was going to bring it back to the subconscious. So how do we as hypnotherapists then bring that fear and phobia back to your subconscious and the accessing and changing that?
Yeah, so I might journey someone into a very nice level of relaxation, because I do believe that when a physical body's relaxed, their mind starts to relax too, and you are more likely to have a better outcome. If your client is still tense and you're going into hypnosis, they're not going to do the work with you. They have to have a certain level of relaxation happening for them to begin to promote those shifts and changes. If I think about inviting the subconscious to do all the work, I want to make sure that the client knows that they're in charge. And I also want permission for the subconscious to work with me today. So I might say, get them to use idiomotor signals, which is signals using their fingers, yes, no, and so on, to set up that subconscious communication. Okay. So when we're looking at that idea of trusting the subconscious has the answer, it knows what it's doing, it knows why it's doing it. If we can appeal to that part, and that part can understand it doesn't need to continue doing that program anymore, it will resolve it. But we must appeal to that part, otherwise it will stay on guard.
And this is where hypnotherapy can have quite quick results, isn't it? Because we're actually accessing the subconscious and bypassing the critical path.
Yeah. Now, your critical part may be aware that you're having a subconscious conversation, but it doesn't have to be involved in it. So we can talk to parts of the body, we can go and do regression, we can go back as the adult we are today to that younger self and do some inner child work. So maybe there was a traumatic experience that happened. We don't have to relive the trauma, but we can look at it through a lens of wisdom. We can start to take that wisdom into the future and imagine success. So there are many things that, as a hypnotherapist, that we have in our toolkit, many methods that we can go about resolving different types of phobias.
Sorry, there's flies. I've got a fly. Just one fly, and the windows are closed, and it keeps going round and round. Wonderful summer and windy days.
Oh, look, it comes with the summer, doesn't it? At least we're not in, what do you call it, Australia, where the flies are everywhere.
Oh, Brisbane. Sydney. Sorry, one year must have been a plague, or was it? It's always like that. There were so many flies, and I don't like flies, so you will see me flitting around. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. So, when we're kind of looking at that idea of overcoming phobias, and especially driving phobia, I use also post-hypnotic suggestion with many of my clients that are dealing with that kind of phobia. So I elicit a really powerful, calm emotion, a confident emotion, a peaceful emotion, all of those things, and then I anchor it to the steering wheel. So the post-hypnotic suggestion is, as soon as your fingers hold the steering wheel, you get an instant feeling of calm, confident, so we can use these spaces, or as soon as you sit in and you buckle up, you have an instant feeling of calm, an instant feeling of confidence. So we can absolutely reinforce through the power of suggestion, post-hypnotic suggestion, some really good things to help that kind of client overcome easily that kind of phobia. Yeah,
for sure.
Is there anything else you would like to share today about this topic, I guess?
I just think it can be a very long topic, and mindful that people, only want to tune in for so long. We have done similar types of things in the past, and we are going to continue on with this series. But if people do have a question about their subconscious, then, drop it into the comments box and ask us that question so that we can chat.
I'd love to hear from you. I'd like to know too, is there a topic you would like us to talk about? And we can create a special one on that if you would really, really like it. We're here to inform, we're here to educate and share what we love doing out to the world. I'm also promoting the school, of course, the hypnotherapy school. So the NZACH.ac.nz is the Academy of Clinical Hypnotherapy here in New Zealand. You can, wherever you are in the world, though, definitely hop on board and do the 1,000 hour diploma course. We have 48 modules that are live sessions every Thursday, mostly from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. New Zealand time. So if you are kind of interested in a career in clinical hypnotherapy, check out the website.
And remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel too. Thanks, Meredith. I look forward to next week on it. So.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for tuning in today, and we'll be back here again in another week. Bye for now.
Bye.